Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, we've started recording. Let's just quickly get started now, right? So, cascade and specificity. That's what we're going to talk about. The first thing now is what is meant. Okay, what's the full form of CSS? Someone raise hands and tell me. I don't know that. What's the full form of CSS? Yes, Puneet.
Cascading style sheets.
Yeah, thank you. Now, can someone tell me what is the meaning of cascade? Now, don't tell me the meaning of cascade in terms of CSS. Tell me the literal or a dictionary meaning of cascade. What is the dictionary meaning of cascade? Maybe just Google it and tell me and everyone. What is the meaning of cascade? Raise hands and tell someone. Come on. Just Google and tell. Or what do you understand by cascade? What is the literal meaning of cascade? Anyone? Yes, Tisendra.
I
Uh,
know a waterfall which cascades through like step by step every each step. So we
right.
can call that cascade.
Right, exactly. Thank you. So cascade is basically a step, a step by step. So a process where it involves going in steps, right? That is what is cascade. So cascade, it's mostly top to down. When something is going from top, you can just consider it like a waterfall, as Krishnendu said. It from the top, it just keeps flowing at the bottom. It might not be only steep. There can be at one level and then there can next level. So that's what is cascade, and in terms little meaning of cascade. Now, who can just tell me what does cascade mean in terms of CSS? What happens and all, no details, just in terms of CSS. What is cascade? What is the meaning of cascade in terms of CSS? Who will tell me? Who knows? Who wants to take a guess? Yes, Anson.
Yeah, applying from top to bottom, whatever we have given the style, getting it applied. That's it.
Right. Puneet, you want to say something else?
I know I wanted to answer about this cascades
Yeah,
itself.
same. Anything other than what Anson said?
Uh, no, it's pretty much similar only. Like
Okay.
quite obvious.
Okay. Srishendu?
I think CSS starts from the top and ends at the bottom. So CSS reads each style line by line. So and applies it by that uh,
Okay.
methodology. So
Okay. So I'll tell you what is the definition, if you'll ask if you'll talk about a definition of cascade in terms of CSS, right? Now, cascade is the process of combining different style sheets and resolving conflicts, right? Now, what does this mean? So CSS or styles on a website come from a lot of different could come from a lot of different places. Okay. Now, can someone, so one of that is basically the developer style sheets or the author style sheets. What does that mean is, you as a developer, the styles that you write, now you can create a different file and write styles. You can write inline styles, or you can have a style tag in the HTML itself, right? The embedded styles. So all those ways where a developer, the author of that website writes styles, those are actually your author styles. And then there could be styles coming from the browser by default. There are so many different places from where the styles could come and get applied, right? So in that, so now how will, and that style could be targeting the same element, right? Now, how will the browser or the entire CSS engine decide that which style needs to be applied, right? Let's say by default, from the browser, the button has, okay, let's actually quickly see an example. uh, what does it mean? What does it mean to resolve conflict, and what is this cascade, and what is the resolve conflict that I'm talking about to you guys? So what is this? This is very simple. This is just a body. Inside this body I have a button, right? And this is called large button, right? I have added a class called large button. Okay, and now I go to the style, and let's say I remove this style, the large button style that I wanted to add. Okay, and let me remove this style also. Okay, something is wrong with code sandbox. Yeah. Okay. So you see this button by default is looking like this without any styles, right? We don't have any other styles. If you go to the HTML, there is this just one link, and there is no other style added to this button, right? And we could actually target this by just selecting the type of this element, right, and give some kind of styles to this, right? And we could actually add a class to this also, and we could actually add more styles to this. And you see font style, font size is 20 for this, and then font size is 24 for this. Now which will get applied, right? Why is it now? If you see here, so basically it's taking 24 pixels. It's not taking 20 pixels right now once you have this style. So why is it? How does it know? What are the rules behind this, right? Now styles could, again, there could be so many different the style. It's not just your author styles. You might add some library, and that could add some styles for the button. You guys created not all of you, but some of you created the component library, and you could write styles for button, and you could add that here too, and that could add some styles to button. Now which of these will get applied? What are the rules behind this, right? What are, now what is the understanding, what is the logical reasoning, or what is the algorithm running behind it which decides, or what is so what is it? Basically css engine is a piece of code, right? So what is there, what are the conditions written in that piece of code which determine that which style will get applied when there are so many different styles which target the same element with the same property, right? This is the problem, and this is the understanding that cascade and specificity will give you. Okay, so that is what cascade is, right? There, in a nutshell, there could be different styles that different origin from where styles could be coming on. They could be targeting the same element with the same property. Now how does css decide which will get applied finally? That is what cascade is, right? And because it's the crux of entire css, it's called cascading style sheets. Okay, now first thing to understand here is, what are we told that cascade means steps, right? Steps, or steps that finish a process, right? Steps that you take to complete a process. And here it is that, the steps that you take to resolve the conflicts between different styles, right? So what are the factors that affect, or what are these steps of cascade, right? So basically, these are these four steps. Now, position or order of appearance. We'll talk about each of these in detail, and that is what understanding of each of these in detail is. Excuse me, is what this class is about, right? Position or order of appearance mean in the source code, right? Which comes later or which comes earlier, right? That is what is position or order of appearance. Now, it could be that inside, basically when I say order of appearance, it could be this itself, where I say font size 24 pixels, and I say font size 24 pixels or font size 42 pixels here, right? So this could be an order of source that we are talking about, right? Now you in this html you have this link added. Now you could add another link here, or you could add another link here, right? So whichever link comes, or whichever source comes at the end, that will be applied that will be applied first in terms of this, or basically when browser resolve conflicts, it will always take the last occurrence if it comes to position, right? So that's about position. Specificity is actually an algorithm which determines that if, which actually determines this, right? Basically, you have a type which actually is targeting the button. You have a class. There are two selectors, two types of selectors, but both of these are targeting the button and they have conflicts, right? So the process or the algorithm which determines that which of these will get applied, that basically is your specificity, right? You might have heard that classes are more specific than types, and that is why this is getting applied. Then IDs are more specific than classes also, right? And so if you add an ID and give an ID and add a font size of 30 pixels, that will getting applied. So this basically is the rules of specificity. How is it calculated? What are the factors affecting it? We'll go into detail in the same today's class. Okay. So just for now, just understand these what I'm talking about, right? Just understand the definition what I'm talking about here. What is origin? So origin is what we talked about, right? There could be different sources from which the styles could be coming. Default browser styles, your authored styles, user agent styles. What are these? We'll talk about it. But when we talk about origin, this is what origin is, right? And again, you might have heard that default browser styles are the least important or the least specific styles, and that's why, by default your button will have that gray background. But anytime you add a class or just add a type button and change it as your author, it gets overridden, right? So that is what is that is where the discussion of origin of styles come from. The last is importance. Okay, so you might have heard of or seen exclamation mark important in some styles or some CSS, right? Who hasn't seen, or who has seen? Raise hands who has seen. I expect all of you have seen it. Only two of you have seen. Three of you have seen. Only three of you. Four out of 30 people. If you're telling me only four people have seen important, seriously? So basically, when I say this is what I mean. This important. Okay, three people have only seen this important. I feel you guys are just lazy. Okay, cool. So basically, and have you heard that you should not use this important? And do you know the reason why you should not use important? So I'll tell you one thing. Whenever you see something like this written, exclamation mark important in an authored style sheet, 99% it is a not well written CSS. Okay, this is a hand rule. I'm telling you. You'll know more about this and why I'm saying this in the same class. Okay, so let's just quickly start going ahead. So this is what it is. These are the four. Excuse me. These are the four stages. These are the four factors that determine your specificity. Okay, and now this is your algorithm. If you remember this, or by practice you'll know this, and once you know this you will always know. So I've seen a lot of people struggling. You have used third party libraries, you've written your own CSS, there are some CSS, and you go in a project and see that the CSS is not getting applied. I'm giving the color red but the color is still blue. Why is it so, right? This is how you'll understand, or this is what you'll need to know to always be very clear of how and which style is getting applied. Okay, so what it is that I told you about these four stages, right? Importance, origin, specificity, and position, right? So always first thing that is seen is the importance. Okay, then you see where is the origin. Once you have determined the origin, then you go to specificity. And if importance, origin, specificity, all these three factors are same, then in the end you check the source order, and whichever comes in the end, that gets applied. Very simple, right? In terms of importance, now again we'll talk about each of these separately, but again I'm trying to go step by step. When we talk about importance, always remember that transitions will transition. Again, if you don't know what transition is, don't worry about it. It's the CSS property. Where what you do is you give give a property or all properties, you can, what you can do, you can change over time, right? You can change the color from yellow to blue in 2 seconds, right? That is what is transition is, right? Then you comes your this exclamation important, then your animation means the keyframe animation that you write in CSS. Again, if you've not written, if you don't know it, don't worry about it, it's fine, it's totally fine. Just do your homework, go back and just see what transitions are, what animations are. It's no rocket science, okay? And then comes your normal styles. Normal styles are everything which are not transitions, which are not written as important, which are not animations, okay? So this is the first thing that will be seen when you're determining which style will get applied, okay? Once you've determined that what is it, if it is transition, then that is the first thing, nothing else, right? Then it could be important, then animation. But if it's none of these, it's just a normal style, then comes the next thing that you'll see. Next thing is origin. Now whenever the browser default styles that are written as important, that means browser, if browser would have written button background color gray exclamation mark important, nobody could have overridden it. Whatever CSS you can write anywhere, you can write, but you cannot override that fact. Only if you can, maybe you can use transition and override it, but otherwise nothing can override that, right? Then comes your user styles. User styles are again very interesting. User styles are something that a user of your website, don't confuse the user styles with user agent styles. User agent styles are the browser default styles. Browsers are also called user agents, right? So browser default styles are the user agent styles. User styles are the styles that the user of your website can write, okay? Now you will say that how can the user of my website, or let's say Facebook, there is Facebook, and I'm a user of Facebook, you are a user of Facebook, how can I modify the styles of Facebook? Can I do that? So basically, in earlier times, there was some browsers, I don't know if there are certain browsers that still exist, but there are certain browsers which allowed you to write some CSS. There are some extensions which allow you to write CSS. And to give you a very quick example, I'll actually show you, okay? So that is what, let's actually get to each of these, and then we'll keep coming back to this, okay? So first, okay, I'll come back to origin, I'll come back to specificity. Let's go over each of these very quickly. So first thing was important, right? So if we see in this example itself, here you saw it, right? So basically what is happening is that that the button by default had some gray background. Now if I write any style here, that gets overridden, okay? There is no important right now, but if I add an important here, so that will always take precedence over anything else, okay? So even if, let's say I add a ID here, okay? So let me show you. So let me quickly show you. Go here, add a ID here. Let me give the ID name button itself, btn, okay? And I go here, and let me, so the source order also, it matters. So if, and only if it's the same type, let's go at the end for that. So id btn, and I can say that font size is equal to 60 pixels, okay? Okay, so this gets applied, okay, because id is more specific, we'll know it later, okay? But what, and still there is no important, but if you add important, that will take precedence over anything, because we know that this is what it is. Whatever specificity may be, whatever origin may be, if there is an important, that takes precedence, and right, and that's why this important here only, although it's only the type that will take precedence, and it will be your 20 pixels of the font size, okay? Now let's, what we were talking about, and let me actually quickly show you what does it mean. A lot of people confuse that how is transition taking the highest priority, and what does this mean. So I'll quickly demonstrate that also, that how transition is the most important and how that is applied here, right? So let's first see the HTML, what is in the HTML. Okay, so there's nothing, you just have a body, this body, and then this actually has a box, that's it. Okay, and when you go to the CSS, okay, it's nothing, it's just, we don't need to. So there's a box, it has some height, it has a background color that we have given, and we would have written a transition. Okay, and what does it mean? Transition all means transition all the transitionable properties. Okay, color is transitionable, height, width, these are not all properties. Margin, padding, they might also be transitionable. They, not all properties are transitionable, right? So when you say all, whatever is transitionable, it will transition that. Okay, do that in 4 seconds. This is what it means. And ease, again, ease is just the timing function, don't worry about it right now. Okay, so and box, when I hover, what we need to do, we need to change the height to 400 pixels, important. Okay, and the background color should change to orange color, important, right? We have added important, you see here. Now what when we have added important, what should happen here, that when the box is hovered, the height should change to 400 pixel and the background color should change to orange, right? But that is not happening. It happens only after 4 seconds, right? When, if you don't have this transition, okay, then the box, let me refresh this. When you don't have this transition at all, oh man, this takes time to refresh. Okay, okay, see, when you don't have the transition, what happens? As soon as you hover, that is what's supposed to happen. The height is supposed to change to 400 pixel, and the background color is supposed to, even if you don't have important, that will happen, right? Because on hover, what you're saying is that height should change to 400 pixels and background color is supposed to change to orange. Now why is that happening? Because the specificity of this is higher. We'll talk about that in specificity and you'll understand that. But just remember that on hover the specificity increases, and that's why what is happening is that the height and background color should immediately change to what is written here. But as soon as we add transition, that doesn't happen, even though you write important. So if you remove transition, right, even if you have not written transition, not written important, because this is more specific, as soon as you hover this will change, right? But as soon as you write transition, even if you add important, because transitions have more precedence than important, what will happen is that it will first see what transition is doing, it will do so. It will only happen after 4 seconds. Okay, again it needs refreshing, so let's refresh this, right? So as soon as we are changing, as soon as we are trying to hover, it does that, but it does that after 4 seconds because transitions always have higher precedence. So hope you understand this. If anyone has a question about this, can ask now. We'll move on from importance. Okay, hope you, again, this is something that's really confused with people. And don't worry about hover and all that, I'll tell you everything on how that happens. Now I've told you how, I've shown you an example of how transition is more important, even if you write exclamation mark important, right? That takes precedence. Now create an animation, keyframe animation, as your homework. Very simple, you find that example everywhere. You can just change the color, the same example where you can change the color from red to yellow over a period of 4 seconds using the keyframe animation. And now give the important and see and what happens, and see if you have important, then what happens, and see if you don't have important, then what happens. So what should happen, if you have animation, that animation should have precedence, right? But if you have written important, the animation will not take precedence, the important will take precedence. This is your homework. I've not written this as your homework, but I'll write and give you. You should try that out. Okay, let's move on quickly to the next one. Okay, now this is what we were discussing earlier. What are the different sources of and origins of the style sheet, right? So once we've dealt with importance, and if we know that it's neither transition, neither it's exclamation mark important added, or it's not even an animation. It's all normal styles. Yes, Gaurav, you have a question?
Yes, can you please share all the homework questions on the WhatsApp group, please?
Yes, yes. It will be done after the class. Thank you. So basically, now what happens is once you've figured that there is no transition, there is no important, there is no animation, it's the normal style. Now, which is more specific, is you'll figure out with the next one. Now, where is that style coming from? Is that style coming from the browser default or styles? Is the style coming from your author styles, right? Which you have written, or is it coming from the user style? Now, how which will be applied is basically this. If a browser writes a style, now I have written it, but I'm not sure where is the example. There could be some example where some element some browser would might have written important. I'm not sure right now. Maybe I'll find it out. Maybe you can find it out. And that's why you don't see it a lot of places, right? So anything with an important, if browser writes it, you cannot override it. Okay, you can only override it with writing a transition or writing important in your own styles. Okay. Oh, basically you cannot import, you cannot override it important in your user styles also. This is always the most present important written in the browser default. Now next will be important written in the user styles. Okay, user means, now I told you that I'll show you example of what a user style is, right? Let's do something. Let's open this website, news.google.co. You see, this is your briefing. This is in red color. This for you. All this is in red color. Have you seen this in red color? No, it's all white. But why is this red color? Because I have overridden the styles. How I have overridden the styles? I've used an extension. Okay, and you see H1, H2, PA color is red. Let me turn it to yellow. All become yellow. Okay, and I've given a HTML font size is 14 pixel. Let me change it to 24 pixel. Right, I can override the styles. And even if I now, because I'm using extension, if I open this, and this is only happening for me. Okay, don't think that by this using extension, yeah, I've changed the style of Google News, and if you open this, you'll also see the same style. No, that doesn't happen, right? So there are certain, as I told you, right, earlier there were some browsers which actually also could do that, right, where they allowed users to write their own custom styles, right? And this is how, and nowadays there are some extensions. There might be some browser which are typically made for this purpose, and they might allow overriding styles of particular website. Now when we are doing something like this is what exactly is your user styles. Okay, don't confuse it with user agent style. User agent style is the browser default style. Okay, browser default style is also called the user agent style because browsers are called user agent. User styles is where the user of the website can override the styles using some extensions or some browsers that support it, right? Now let's actually go to that. Okay, right. So uh, these are the different origins from where the styles can come. And as we saw that this is the importance. So most places, you will see that it will be written that author styles are most specific. After that there is user styles, and then there is browser default. But you need to know that as soon as you add important, the order reverses, right? And that to me is more intuitive also. If browser is adding important to something, that means that no one should be able to you know change that style, because browsers by default are tolerating, they have the least specificity, so that styles can be overridden. But browser itself, if it's adding important, I think that intuitively makes sense to be most important. And that's how second one is a user style. If the user is writing important to some style, the author should not be overriding that, right? Because your user wants to override your and they are not overriding for all the user. They want certain style, and if they are writing important, you should not be able to override that as a developer itself, right? And then is your basically your important author styles or author styles. You can, it's the same thing, and they come in the between. And then user styles and browser default style. And this is the example of that you saw already, right? Because by default, if you don't have any CSS, by default, that browser. And actually you can see this, I can show you. Uh, so so if we try and inspect this button, so browsers actually show you from where these styles are coming from. You see this button, all the styles are coming from user agent style sheet. I told you, right? Browsers or default browser default styles are also called user agent style sheet. So all these styles for the button, right, they're coming from the user agent, right? And as soon as, let's say, I change this, I uncomment this, okay, and let me refresh this. A lot of problems with code sandbox. Okay, now if you inspect this and try to find out, you see this is the style. This is the style.css that you added, right? And this is the button style, user insight. So you can see all the places from where the styles are coming from. Okay, in the, excuse me, in the dev tools. So this was the second thing, the origin, what is important and how, which is important, right? And how your author styles, of course, are more important than your user styles. But as soon as you add important, things change. Now you should actually start exploring these. You should go ahead, you should, as your homework, try these out in code and come back and tell me that, Vikram, you told something incorrectly, because I tried it and it's not according to this, right? So go back. Only way you'll remember this, because you don't need to buy hard this. This is not a table that you'll 2 to the 4 and 2 3 the 6. You don't need to do that. You just need to go there, try it out, see it in practice, and then you'll not remember, you'll not forget it ever. Okay, so that was what the source is. Now is the next thing that is most interesting, right? Specificity. Now you know that there is no important, there is no transition, there was no animation. I know that whatever there is no browser added important. I have not overridden it using any extension or something. It's all author styles. No, basically third party styles also that you add. Let's say if in this we added a link and type and style sheet, and we added a bootstrap or some other thing, or your own custom library code. That is also all authored. That is all authored style sheets. That is also something that as an author you have added in your website. Okay, so that is all authored styles. Okay, so now in that authored style, now how do I find out that which is more specific, right? And which will get applied. So that is where specificity comes into picture, and that is where specificity formula comes into picture. Okay, most people stop that, okay, inline styles are more specific, then id, then class, and then type. But what if there are 2 3 classes added, and what if there are one class added? Okay, if there are 2 classes, you can add n number of classes to an element. And and if there is only one class added, then how will it affect? If you have a pseudo class, then how will it be the effect? If you have an attribute in the selector, then how the effect will be? Let's quickly see that. Okay, let me close these tabs, and please pay attention. This is the most basically interesting and also hard to understand part for some people, but it's actually very easy. Okay, so let's quickly see what's going on here. You have a body, you have a section as a class container, you have a div, you have that div has id special box, it has a class called box, right? That's all, there's nothing else there, right? Now let's see in the style what is happening. Right now we see that there is a dot box for the class, for the box. You have height width, this is which is 400, but the background color, there are so many different selectors for the background color, right? On the top we have this with the red, at the bottom we have this with the blue violet, and you see here you have a hover on this, right? Special box id, and there is a hover, and when I hover, the color is not changing, right? The color didn't change. And this is I also first, when I started to understand specific, or when I didn't know specificity, that this was the most confusing part. And that is where I dug deep into specificity and understood it. When someday I was working on something and my hovers were not working, I was very confused. I have written hover. When you write hover and you do something inside that, it is supposed to do that. We always see that, but and don't worry, this is not code sandbox problem. I can refresh this and still show you that the hover is not working, right? And that is what is interesting, and that is what we'll understand how that happens. Okay, so right now, you see, so basically it's green in color, or basically dark green in color. Basically this is what is getting applied. So let's change it so that you can see that this is, you don't confuse between green and dark green. So it's actually yellow that's getting applied right now. Code sandbox is giving me a lot of trouble. Okay, right. So it's yellow. Now, how did the browser figure it out that it's supposed to be yellow? Okay. So now I told you here that inline is most important, then ID, then class, attribute, classes, pseudo classes. Please give me an example of pseudo class quickly. We have already seen that in previous class. Raise hands quickly. Sri Shendu.
Cover, focus, active.
Okay. More examples in the chat. More examples of pseudo elements in the chat. After and before are not pseudo classes. After and before are pseudo elements. You people who have attended the previous class, I'm guessing most of you who are here might have, go to your previous lesson and tell me, or the slide, or whatever you have, whatever notes you might have made, examples of pseudo class. Just google it. Examples of pseudo class, examples of pseudo element. Give me an example of attribute in the chat. More. I want more people. No, role is not a pseudo class. Role is not a pseudo element. Role is nothing. Role is an attribute. Sorry, yes. Oh, opacity is not a pseudo element, not a pseudo class. I don't think it's an attribute also. Basically, anything could be an attribute. Yeah, for an image, source is an attribute, alt tag is an attribute. You can write data or something with an attribute, right? href is an attribute, correct? More examples of pseudo classes, pseudo elements, checked and all. So many, placeholder checked, placeholder checked. What are these? Pseudo classes, pseudo elements. Last child, end child, we discussed so many, right? So basically, now coming back to this, you need to remember is first inline, then ID. Now classes, attributes and pseudo classes will have the same precedence, and then at the end is your type or pseudo element. Okay, now let's see it into precedence. Now if you have to calculate specificity, there are two ways to calculate it. Okay, be, actually be very attentive. Okay, one way which you do is basically, because it's all cumulative. Okay, so you, it's just, I'll use a bracket. Okay, now how many inline styles are there for this box? We are trying to figure out what is the background color that should be applied to this box. Okay, what are, how many inline styles are there? Right now I'm just telling you there are no inline styles. Okay, so what we'll say 0. Okay, so we are trying to figure out the specificity of this particular selector. Right now, how many, what is next? ID. In this selector, are there any IDs? There is no ID, so this will be 0. Okay, then what is it? Next one, are there any classes, pseudo classes or attribute? There is one class. Okay, so this becomes 1. And the next one, are there any type or pseudo element? Nothing, so this becomes 0. Okay, just hold on for a minute. Now let's actually do this. Okay, we just figuring out in these two. So let us actually do this also. Okay, let's And let's make a comment here so that it doesn't. Yeah. So for this one, let us write the specificity here itself. For this one, the specificity is this 0010. Okay. Now let's uncomment this one. Okay. And let's first calculate the specificity here. Okay. So now I'll create the same brackets. There are no inline styles 0. There is one ID, right? So 1. There are no classes 0, no type 0. Okay. So basically now to determine which gets applied or which has more specificity, what you do, you start from the left 0, same, you go to the next one, this is 0, this is 1, so this one wins. Okay, and that's why this becomes more specific. So the background color of this special box is supposed to be maroon, and code sandbox is testing my patience. Okay, so it is supposed to be maroon. Okay, now this one, now someone please raise hands and tell me the specificity of this guy, the third one. Please raise hands. Yes, Abhishek. Abhishek, unmute yourself.
It's it's green, sir.
What is the specificity of this particular selector?
0010, sir.
Hold on. So basically, yes, you're right. So basically, how many inline styles? Zero. Abhishek.
Yes, sir. Zero.
And then how many IDs? There's no ID. Zero.
No ID. No ID, sir.
No
And one
classes.
ID, sir.
No classes attributes. Zero. And then there is one type. So it will be one. Okay. Thank you,
Yes.
Abhishek.
Okay, sir.
You can do this. So basically, this is the specificity, and you know that this is, even though the source order comes below, but the specific, this has more specificity, so this gets applied. Okay, now let's see the next one. Who will tell me the specificity for this one? Yes, Mega. How, how many inline styles?
0.
Okay, what's next?
ID 0. No, just a minute. Yeah, ID is 0. There is a class container. So it's 0.
There is an ID. So it's all
Uh,
cumulative. You have to
yeah,
take, you have to see all parts of your selector. How many IDs are there now?
1.
One. How many classes, pseudo classes?
2.
So there are no pseudo classes. There is no attribute. There are two classes, right? So this will become 2. Any type or
No.
any pseudo
0.
element? No. So this will be 0. Thank you. So basically now let us consider this guy and this guy, second one, right? So we start from the left, 0 0 same. So we move on, 1 1 same. So this is also same. So we move on, next one. We see this was 0 and now this is 2. So that means that this will get applied and this will not get applied. Okay, and again I'll refresh this and show you that it's yellow. Okay, this is now that's how you will now tell me what is happening with hover and why is the hover not working. Now who will tell me the specificity of this guy? Raise hands. Someone new. It's so simple. Yes, Gaurav, tell me.
0010.
Let's start. Are there any inline?
No,
No.
0.
Any ID?
No, 0. Yes, ID 1. Sorry.
Yes, there is one ID, right? Are there any classes, pseudo classes?
No.
What is hover? Hover is a pseudo class or pseudo
Oh,
element,
yes, yes. It's a pseudo class.
right? So this
Yes.
becomes one. Are there any
And
types or
0.
pseudo elements? No.
No.
0. right? And this is why your hover is not working, right? Because if you check the the specificity of this guy and compare it with this guy, 0, next one is 1, and next one is 2, right? Now how will you fix this? Okay, now you can do couple of things. Okay, now what can I do? First thing I'll do, let's say I'll add one class dot box. Okay, so now what happens? Now this becomes 2. Does this become 2? Right? Now the specificity of this guy and this guy is the same. Okay, so now if I refresh, hour is working. Right? So this is very critical for understanding. This is true, not just true for hover, this is true for everything, right? And please play around. I have created an exercise for you guys. I'll quickly, let me show you. It's a very interesting exercise. I will suggest you to, after this class itself, quickly go through and do this. Okay, it's so simple. You have to just add these brackets and figure out, right? So this is what the exercise is. Very simple, where you just write the specificity in the same way and figure out that which one will get applied, right? It's the same. You just check the selectors and figure out, calculate the specificity, which is more. You just do that, and that gets applied. Then just use this, put it in code sandbox or anywhere, and see it that actually what you think is right is actually getting applied. Okay, use that with your understanding. It's pretty interesting. And a lot of people, a lot of senior people also don't understand this very well. Even I'm pretty sure that at the point that some of you or a lot of you would be at your career, at the time when I was there, maybe I didn't know all this, right? So you're already ahead in that sense, right? So please understand this very carefully. Please go back, practice it, see. So basically, after specificity, once you've understood specificity, that the last thing is this, right? Position, right? Or the source order, which we told you, right? That of course, once everything is the same, importance is the same, origin is the same, and specificity is also the same, the source order, basically which comes in the end, that matters. Okay, and we didn't talk about inline, right? If you see that inline is always at the top, so anything that you write in inline, that takes more precedence, right? Even more than all the specificity. You can write hundreds of classes, hundreds of IDs, and you can add them and have that style. But if you add anything inline, that will get precedence. And I'll just, to show you, I will try and show that to you. Okay, let's make it black. Okay, and let me refresh this guy. See, nothing. Okay, what if I write important? What will take precedence? If I write important here, what will take precedence? Will it be, someone tell me, will it be red or will it be black? Yes, Mega.
Black,
Why?
because it's in the inline styling.
Okay, Sri Shendu, does your answer differ from this?
Yeah, red.
Sorry,
Red. It will be
why?
red
Why?
because important is higher than inline style.
Yes. And I feel that specific what Sri Shendu is saying should be the right thing. That's right, and that's why Megha, just go back to this guy, right? If you have important written,
Sure.
it can come from a whatever origin, whatever specificity. If it is important, if that is more important, right? Inline is here in the bracket. Excuse me, important is much ahead. Okay, if you think about our example, this is what it is. Sorry, important author style. In this is where it will fall, right? And the other one will fall here, right? So if it's not falling here, then specificity calculation, don't need to do itself. You're already here. which is already greater, right? So this is, I think, mostly it. Last part was position, which you already understand now, right? And yeah, this is very important, guys. This is actually a lot. I told you, I'll keep stressing upon this again and again. This is something that is confused by a lot of people. It's very simple. I'll give you this exercise. You should go back and just quickly practice this. And once you know this, I'll tell you, your life will become very, very simple. When you start writing CSS, a lot of people have this fear, and a lot of people don't understand. You might have been in that situation where, I have had been n number of times before. I didn't even know what all this is about. I'm writing some style and this is not getting applied. Why? I need, as an engineer, I need to know the logical reasoning behind that, right? And not even engineer, if I'm writing that code, I need to know the logical reasoning behind what code is working and why is it working, right? Then only I'll be able to write better code, or fix issues for that matter, right? Hopefully, again, you guys learned something new. You guys got a lot of crux of an understanding of how this cascade works, how specificity works. Now that you see a large scale, mid scale application where there are styles all over the place, you'll be more confident when you're writing a style. And oh, I told you, right? We talked about all this. I told you something in the first place. I told you that if someone is writing exclamation mark important, that means that they're not writing good code and the code is not structured. Did someone understand why we are saying that now? Basic, yes. Let me hear it. What do you think, Anson?
Yeah, like it is very difficult to debug like from where it is getting applied.
Right. One of these reasons, right? One of the reasons, because it will be difficult to debug. In the code, if there are some styles coming from so many places, if someone has written important, one is it's difficult to debug. What else, Puneet? What do you think?
It could be about their understanding about the whole cascading effect of these style sheets itself.
Right. So
So their
basically,
yeah, their understanding about CSS itself, right, and specificity itself. So a lack of understanding could be one of those things. So people just think put important and it will suddenly start working.
right. Mega,
Basically, it's stopping to provide some more flexibility in this
that
styling.
right, one of the very important reasons, right? When you write code, right, you want things to be, you create functions. You create, when you've written a function which is too long, you'll create a smaller function which you might be able to use at other places, right? So how will you write modular code, and how will you write unless you understand? So most places, why people write important, they'll see that, okay, my style is not working, I'll write important. They'll not understand that the problem is with the specificity here, and they need to write in a hover example, right? If you would add important, that hover will start working, but that is not right. And that actually doesn't gives you the flexibility of writing that modular code where, if you're written important, now other people who might be using your same component will not be able to override the style that you might not want, right? Shishendu, anything else that you want to say about this?
Yeah, I think when the code base will increase in size, it will be very difficult to like change in further for the developer to modify anything. Like everything will be important, and that how it will be difficult.
Yeah, exactly the problem, right? So yeah, hope now that you have a good understanding of this and you learned something new. I'll share this notion with you to do the exercise. uh, the Yeah, I think that's all. We can stop the recording here, and I'll probably see you next time. Next, if we do the next class, I was going to tell you how values are processed in CSS. Now, here we talked about that there could be different styles that are coming now. let's say that the font size is given in pixels somewhere, and the font size is given as rams somewhere. Now what is the final so browser will always take the final value in terms of pixels. You can give 100%, you can give percentage, you can use any sort of unit, but how is the final conversion? What is the background logic? What is the algorithm? What is the code that determines the final value of an element, and what is the final value of that element that is getting rendered on the page? That is value processing, which we might learn next time. Okay, cool. See you then. Good night.